So I had a lot of people tell me they knew how to play chess, but they actually only knew how to move the pieces.
That happens to you and you can't really win games, I recommend you staying on this video because today I'll be helping you finally move on from spending hours playing chess and constantly losing elo to finally surpass that 900 elo mark. What we'll be looking at today is not just some opening to memorize and apply, like the Londons, but some concepts that you'll be using for the rest of your life. Not gonna lie, I actually use this in my everyday games because they've been taught to me and I apply them every single time. These principles were developed by Capablanca, who is the third ever world chess champion. And he actually has a book about these fundamentals, which you can just search up and check it out because if you want to get better at chess, I'd really recommend you reading it. Summing everything up, we divide our chess game into three parts: the opening, the middle game, and the endgame. And we are gonna go over each one of them and explain some simple concepts that are essential if you want to get better at chess. Capablanca recommends in his book is for every beginner to start with the endgame. The endgame can be very complicated, but what we want to is to start with the most basic checkmates and ideas. This is done to familiarize yourself with the way pieces move and control squares, to then understand the other stages of the game.
What we are gonna start with are the most basic checkmates. But first, we need to learn a concept or situation that is very common and very essential for each of these checkmates, which is called opposition.
It's a situation where both kings face each other with only one square between them. So this makes the one not moving next have a slight disadvantage, because they have to either move sideways or they have to move back. I would also like to add that for opposition they have to be in the same rank or in the same file. You can also predict opposition. If the kings are in the same rank or file, then whether the number of squares between them is odd or even is vital. Let's say it's our turn to move, and there are 4 squares between us, which is an even number. Then we will be the ones who will end up opposing. Let's see. The king moves forward, the other king moves forward, and we are opposing. So they cannot move forward, and they have to move back. Vice versa when there is an odd number of squares. So if it is our turn to move and there are, for example, 3 squares between us, then we will be ending up the ones opposed. So we will move forward, and now we have been opposed.
Now, it's important you got the concept of opposition clearly because it is a very important step in every single endgame. Nevertheless, let's move on to the interesting part, which are the checkmates. I'm gonna explain each one of them very quickly and simply because I don't have enough time to explain them all details. But for that, I made a Lichess study, which is linked in the description, where you can even practice with the computer each endgame and read carefully step by step what you need to do to learn them. So check that out. I think it will help you a lot. But if not, just look at these simple explanations. That being said, let's see the first endgame.
The rook pretty quick. It's not the quickest method, but is indeed the easiest. So what we need to do first is to set some goals. First, we want to bring the king to this rank because it's close to him. We need to bring to the edges of the board. So this one's closest, so we're gonna do that. To do that, we use our rook because it moves horizontally or vertically to limit this king, which we do that by simply moving here. So now they have to either move to the sides or to move back. So if they move back, we just follow them. We just completed our goal. But they are probably gonna move to the side. And now we bring our king.
So this is the position we want the kings to be in, like as if we were a knight. We are just attacking as if we are knight, but we're not doing anything. We want this king to oppose us. This is our main goal. We want that king to oppose us because now we control these 3 squares. So if we check them, he can't move forward. And he only has to move backward, which would be, for example, here. So we follow the king, they move to the side. We follow the king, they move to the side. We follow the king. Now he has to oppose us again. We just check. It's very easy. They move. We just move. We just follow them. Even though we're not like this, if we end up like that, if they move again, we can just move our rook. So they either have to move back or they continue forward. We always end up in the same position. So now they move here, we follow them, and guess what? They can't move anywhere here. So you have to move back, and it's checkmate, because they have no more ranks to go back to. So the queen checkmate actually has the same goal as the rook checkmate, to reach the edges of the board. But we do that in a more curious way, which is to follow this king as if we were a knight. So as the queen were a knight, we just follow the queen. We need a knight distance from them, an L shape. So the king will eventually just limit himself and close himself up. We just follow them in any way. Imagine they just move here. We just follow them as we were a knight. L shape all the time. L shape, L shape, L shape. It's just very easy. They move here, L shape. Now they just can't move to any center squares, so they have to move to the edges. So imagine they just move here, L shape. Move here, L shape. So this is where we want our queen to stop at, because if they move forward, this is stalemate. We don't want that. We just leave it like that, and once the king is stuck, we just bring our king. And the king has 2 lovely squares to move at. So we bring our king, they move back, and now this is checkmate, because the king can move here, it can move here, and this queen is defended by the king. That's why we bring him there. So that's it. So those were the easy ones. Now the 2 bishop checkmate is actually pretty complicated. Not a lot of experienced players know it. So I really recommend you checking out that Lichess study, because I will be explaining it very quickly. Or just watch this little speedrun of what it is, or how it looks like. Let's show a little voiceover how it goes. So first, we want to bring our bishops to the center. They need to control the 4 squares that are in the middle, those. So we just kick out the king out of there. And now that we control them, we bring our king. So the bishops actually make a little barrier so the king can't go in. So we bring our king, and we want to keep that barrier. So there's just king just moving back and forth. We bring our king, we're controlling the d6 square, which is we don't want the king to go to, because we are moving our bishop forward. So the king moves back, the black king, we just bring our bishops. Again, we do the same pattern, we move our king forward, he needs to move back, and we bring the other bishop. So now we just want to move this king to the corner. We already moved him to the edge, now we bring him to a corner, doesn't matter which. So the king moves, we just keep eliminating the squares where he can go to, and now we oppose the king. This is a very important step so that he doesn't escape. Just check, check, moves to the corner, and checkmate, because he doesn't have any more squares to go to. So we're gonna now take a look at the endgame where you have an extra pawn. So these endgames are usually very winnable, but there are some still cases that end up in draw. So with the knowledge of these, you can actually save and win many endgames. So please pay attention.
Show you how to win with an extra pawn in most endgames. There are not pawns in these 2 files, because those are mostly draws. So what our goal is to bring this pawn over here to crown, to make a queen, of course. So to do that, we need this king in front of this pawn at all times. So this king has to be here. It can't be near or below because that's draw. So what we need to do is to bring our king forward. They will probably also bring their king, so we just move forward. And guess what? It was in opposition. Why? Well, because they are 6 squares apart, which is an even number, and it's our turn to move. Guess what? It's opposition. So once we are here, the king is probably gonna move to the side. If they do that, we take this, which is a good thing about opposition. And now we created a little highway for our pawn to move at. Even they move back, we just do the same thing over and over. Or I have to move this side and we just bring our king forward. But we need to remember to bring our pawn also because they will try to take it if it's too far. So that's more or less how you win it if it's your turn and it's an even case. Thingly is actually a draw. Why? Because we are being the ones opposed. Because it's our turn and it's an odd number, so we will end up being opposed by black. What a bummer. So now, or we are stuck in a never-ending loop where just this, or we have to move back, or we are forced to move our pawn forward. And this is the draw. Why is it a draw? Because we are ending up in a stalemate. Just let me show you. But now, we either have to stalemate, there's a draw obviously, or we have to move back and they take the pawn, which is also a draw. And this is all because we were opposed, which is a very weird concept, but it's very interesting also. So that's why opposition is important, because if we were the ones opposing, they would have to move this side, and that highway again would be created. The king wouldn't be in front, and we would be able to win. However, there is a peculiar case. Imagine we ended up like this, being opposed because it's our turn, but our pawn has still one move. Then we are the ones doing the opposition thanks to this pawn. Because if we move forward, it's black's turn and they have to move to the side. So that's what saves us the win, because we just moved a little pawn, one square, and that is a win. If you have like a backup move, then you're winning. But if not, if this was like this and it was white's turn, then this would be a draw indeed. But now we just repeat the same pattern and we just move forward, we just go back. Let me show you how it ends. Just go like that. And we'll just bring it again. So we can do that again, the same. We're opposing them because it's their turn to move. And now that we've achieved going to one of these two squares, it's just easy. We just crown it, we make our queen, and we do the checkmate that I've already taught you, which is very simple, very easy. So that's more or less how this endgame goes.
Finally, we are done with endgames, which I believe to be the most boring part, but we need to get that checked out to do the other stuff. So now we know how pieces move and interact, we get to the fun part, the opening. It is the start of the chess game, thus in the name, the opening, because it opens the game. There are actually so many openings you can choose from to learn, but in my channel there are 2 videos about a defense and an opening that I really recommend you for beginners, but you can take a look at whatever. These concepts that I'm about to teach you, they apply to every single opening. Well, maybe not every single, but most of them. So for beginners, you don't actually have to memorize a lot, you just need to remember these 3 things. We got number 1, control the center. This is usually done with the help of pawns and knights or bishops. Number 2, develop the pieces, which are usually the knights, the bishops, the rook, maybe the queen. And number 3, protect the king. This is usually done by castling, or just take out the big pieces from the game so your king can be safe.
Let's take as an example of an opening where you develop everything. This is the Italian. So e4 is how it starts. We are already developing a pawn, and we're controlling two squares of more or less center. They do the same. They're also wanting to control stuff. So we just develop our knight. We are also controlling the center, but we are also developing. They do knight c6 to same goal, also to defend this one, because it is controlling the center and it's important. We develop our bishop, another piece. Great, step number 2. Amazing. They do the same, and now they're attacking our controlling pawn at the center. So what do? We defend it. We defend it with d3. So they do bishop c5 to also develop. Why not? It's good. Now we do step number 3, which is protecting the king. We are getting it away from the center because it is more vulnerable to attacks, to just the queen, the rook, all getting mad at us and just absolutely blowing us up. So we need to get it off the center because that's where most of the stuff is going to happen at. And why do we need to do this? Well, we usually need to do this because the plans for the middle game are essentially bad if you do not do these 3 steps. Because, as said before, you got the king in the center. So if the king is in the center, it's just bothering everything, nothing can be developed, and the plans are just chopped. And also, if we do not develop these pieces, they are not gonna let the rooks go in. They're not gonna let do anything, and the plans are just gonna be composed of like 2 pieces, which is essentially just nothing. It doesn't work. These plans don't work. What I would take as an example of what a good position, well developed, looks like would be the Sicilian dragon when you follow this theory step by step. So, both people have memorized the theory and they both developed all their pieces. So, as we can see, they've developed all their bishops, all their knights, and they've also developed the rooks. Well, this one has castle, but this one has developed it. It went into a semi open column file where you're directly targeting the king. So our plan is now in motion. This is where we present into the mid-game. The mid-game consists of a few different plans where you move your pieces to complete a certain goal. Our goal here is to target this point. This point is actually pretty weak because it's being targeted by the bishop, by the rook, it's going to be targeted by the queen. It's going to be a mess. And white is going to actually do a very similar thing, where they are gonna push pawns, they're gonna absolutely try to destroy this structure over here. And the one who arrives first is probably gonna win the game. So we just need to follow a few plans, which is basically the entirety of the minigame. You actually usually should stick to one plan only, because if you do a few plans, it's going to be a lot slower and it's not going to be as efficient if you just stuck to one plan. But what's most important here is that you've developed everything. You have not developed at least 80% of your pieces, your plans aren't going to work, as I mentioned earlier. Let's see a game from master strategist like Karpov. Karpov is against Viktor Korchnoi, who are both 2 very good players. But Karpov is gonna show us how strategy more or less works, how his plans develop, how everything goes through if he commits to one thing. So right now he's playing against the Sicilian Dragon, which Viktor Korchnoi plays, of course. So here, they're gonna both commit plans. Viktor Korchnoi is going to attack this side with his bishop, his queen, his rook, and Karpov is going to attack on this side with his pawns, with his rook, of course, maybe with his bishop. So they both have well-developed plans. Right now, we're gonna see how Karpov does this. So he commits, of course, they're both committing. This is all theory moves. Rook takes, etc. h5. h5 is where Karpov decides, well, I'm just gonna attack, why not? So Viktor Korchnoi takes that pawn, he thinks it's for free, of course, but it's not. Because now it opens up the path to the rook. And now they're both committing, because he left his knight to be able to move his bishop. Korchnoi is deciding to attack this side, while also maybe defending here. So Karpov decides to trade Korchnoi's most valuable piece, which is the bishop here in this position, which defends but also attacks. So now he's got this little machine gun here, which is only defended by this knight. So Karpov, before committing to his attack, which can be a little slow, he decides to defend this because it's a little vulnerable to attacks. So Korchnoi decides to do the same. Right now, even though it is attacked, it is defended, Karpov decides to attack, which Korchnoi of course takes, because he thinks another free pawn, why not? But Karpov decides to sacrifice his rook, which is not indeed a sacrifice because it's just checkmate, but it's also beautiful, because he's committing to that plan of absolutely destroying that position, that structure. This is going to be absolutely demolished. So right now, Korchnoi takes because he has no other option, or else he will lose that rook, and Karpov takes with his knight. So now he's both attacking this pawn and this knight, which are both very dangerous things in this position. So Korchnoi just decides to defend that pawn. And now Karpov is bringing another piece, the last piece that wasn't working. He's just putting everything into that position. Everything is working, everything is attacking, which is the most important thing in the middle game. Everything has to be well developed, everything has to be coordinating, because that's how you win the game. Maybe you will gain a little advantage that will help you in the end game, where if you learned what I explained in the other part of the video, will be very helpful. So right now, Karpov decides to do e5 to attack that knight, not scared that he will lose his knight, because if not, it's checkmate, of course. Korchnoi takes with bishop, and Karpov takes the knight. So right here, another column has opened up, which can be very interesting right now, because after he takes, queen takes check, and the king moves. Queen h8, and the black resigns. Why is that? Because now, after king e7, we do knight d5, queen takes, rook e1, and then we take this rook. It can't be defended, because if it didn't take this bishop, it would go here and everything would be defended. So that's how you need to commit to your plans. You can't just leave it in the middle of nowhere and not do anything. But the plan you have to do has to make a little sense, because if not, that will be just a bummer. What you need in a plan is basically to find a little weakness that that your rival may have, and then exploit that weakness. You need to exploit every single weakness that your rival has for your plans. If you see a pawn that can be attacked and then taken, do that. If you see a position that can be attacked with your pawns, a structure where a pawn is advanced, do that, just as Karpov. If you see that the king is not defending by the pieces, you can also commit to that with your pieces. If you see a column, a rank, a file, or anything like that, you also can commit to that. But most importantly, you need to develop all your pieces and they have to coordinate. If not, you will gain less of an advantage and your position will be stiff.
So if you've reached the end of the video, thanks for watching, and I hope it really helped you. And if it did, consider liking or subscribing. I'll see you next time.